Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar. Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah. Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah.
All praise and thanks is due to Allah. We praise Allah, we seek assistance and forgiveness from Allah, and we seek refuge in Allah from our lower selves and from the wrongs that we sometimes commit. Whoever Allah guide, no one can misguide, and whoever Allah leaves astray, no one can guide. And we bear witness that there is none worthy of worship besides Allah, the one who is unique and has no partners. And we bear witness that the Nabi Muhammad ﷺ is Allah's servant and messenger. قال الله تعالى في القرآن الكريم زين للناس حب الشهوات من النساء والبنين والقناطير المقنطرة من الذهب والفضة والخيل المسومة والأنعام والحرث ذلك متاع الحياة الدنيا والله عنده حسن المآب. Allah says, and fair in the eyes of humanity is the love of the things that they desire. It's either women or sons or heaps of gold and silver, horses branded for blood and excellence, and wealth of cattle and well-tilted land. Such, says Allah, are the possessions of this worldly life, but in nearness to Allah is the best of goals to return to. So obviously when this verse was revealed, it was revealed to Bedouin Arabs. And for Bedouin Arabs, having hundreds of women and having sons that can be an extension of themselves, and heaps of gold and silver and well-tilted and fertilized land were all the things that they desired living in a desert. But obviously if we translate this to our situation today, it's also having that, that perfect partner, having wealth, having that branded BMW or Mercedes or whatever, and also having a nice piece of land with a beautiful house. And so these are things that human beings desire. But Allah says these are possessions of this world. But what you have with Allah is what is the goal. And so nearness to Allah is better than the possessions in this worldly life. So often the Quran then reminds us of these attachments that we make to this dunya. Whether those attachments are tangible things that you can feel and touch, like a car and a house and whatever, or whether they are intangible things like the kind of relationships that we create. So, but when we make these attachments, there are feelings attached to these attachments, right? And so there are emotional feelings and feelings of desire and feelings of possession that goes with these attachments. And we know, and we've said this previously, that feelings is a product of our mind. And so if you can control what you put in your mind, you can control your feelings. And so I often say that feelings is something, then we need to get this right, it's something that you have in bed. Other than that, outside of that, you have to think. And so the Quran reminds us of the possibility of human beings to be able to master and control what we put in our minds. And by that we can control our feelings. Because we must remember also that things like unhappiness and depression, these are all feelings. And they stem from what we have been storing in our mind. So there is a possibility of controlling that. And the Quran also reminds us of the awliya who were examples of how people could master the mind. The awliya are the friends of Allah, they're the karamats as we refer to them. And as a result of their sacrifices, they have actually gotten this title as friends of Allah. Because the awliya, Allah says in the Quran, لَا خَوْفٌ عَلَيْهِمْ وَلَا هُمْ يَحْزَنُونَ. There is no fear on them, nor do they grieve. They don't get depressed. Now why don't they fear and why don't they get depressed? When these are such natural, almost natural things that we go through on a daily basis. It's because they have mastered the arts of detaching from things. So if you look at example, you have a burglary at your house, right? So you come home and you see everything has been stolen. And so immediately there are emotions that comes up, there are feelings that comes up. Feelings of being violated. Somebody has stepped into my private space, and so that hurts you. Feelings of having lost some precious things. So these things were expensive, and so there's a feeling attached to that. Feeling of hard work. I've worked so hard for so many years to, have this big screen TV and whatever. Now it's all lost. There's a feeling of mistrust. Can I trust my community? Can I trust to leave my house open next time? And there's feelings of inconvenience. So now that this has happened, I have to start all over again. And what a big inconvenience that is. So all of these emotions that we experience when an incident like that happens is related to feelings, is related to attachments. Now if you examine, what does it mean when we say expensive and hard work and trust and violation and inconvenience? The attachment we have to the word expensive has to do with the value that we put into material things, right? The attachment we have to hard work is the value we put into our time and our efforts. We say that that's important for us. The attachment we make to the word inconvenience is the attachment we make to ease and comfort. So we all desire ease and comfort in life. And so when somebody comes in between, that's an inconvenience. And the attachment we have to the word trust is we expect that other people will take responsibility for what they do. And so if they don't, we lose trust. Because we want to keep other people responsible. And then the word violated has to do with our ego. Because our ego is damaged. How can somebody come into my house and take my stuff? It's about my ego. So that's an example of a tangible thing, right? Your house has been broken in, your things have been stolen. But on an intangible level, if we think about falling in love with somebody and we lose that person that we love, or we lose that person through death, the person died, and then we say, Ya Allah, how could you do this, taking my love away? Or the person betrays us. Now these are all things that are beyond our control. Death does happen, we can't control it. People do betray, we see it on a daily basis, we can't control that. But what we can control is our responses to those things when they happen. So we have expectations from the other person. Because you love me, and because I love you, you cannot do this, and you cannot betray me, and you cannot even die, we say. We maybe not say it sometimes, but we think that. I don't even want to think about when this person that I love is going to die. Because it's painful. And we constantly, as human beings, try to avoid the pain. So what we need to do in this instance is we need to train the ego to shut up. And we need to understand that we are not our ego. Our ego is part of us. Yes, we need to accept our ego. Yes, we need to love our ego because it's part of us. But we need to treat the ego as an enemy. Because the ego constantly making suggestions that you are important, you are important. And we'll see now why we are not important. Now that doesn't mean, before I go there, that doesn't mean that if somebody has now broken into your house, or somebody has betrayed you, that the perpetrator should just be left alone. It's not a good idea to take justice in your own hand, but the world is set up, or the universe is set up in such a way that justice at some point does get served. So that's why we have the saying, Vadisai Salyamai, and every dog has its day, because justice will be served. So if there's nothing that you can do about the fact that your house has been broken in, or that you can't take justice in your own hands, then you leave it up to the law of the land, or you leave it up to Allah. But what is it that you need to do in order to move on from the experience? That is the question. So Allah reminds us of the goal of life, which is not to gain these material possessions, which is not to hoard these feelings, and which is not to make the attachments to this world, and that the goal is towards Allah. But what does it mean when Allah says the goal is towards Allah? If I ask you to close your eyes, right? And if I ask you to imagine that you're in a dark room and you can't see anything, and suddenly you just see a candle lit in the dark, right? And then I ask you to open your eyes and I say, where's the candle now? And then you say, but it was all just in my mind. I said, well, then open your mind and take the candle out. Then you'll say, but you're an idiot, how can I do that? Because it's just an image on my mind. And I say, but now where is that image stored? You say, well, it's stored in my mind. Well, if you open your mind, it's nothing there. There's only neutrons and electrons and, and stimulations and stimulus and whatever. But the picture is not there. And when you go deeper and deeper, you'll discover that the picture is in your consciousness. And if you look at a real candle, what we call real, you see the candle there in the dark room and it's lit and you're standing in front of it, and I ask you, where's the candle? And you say, there's the candle. But then you bring the chameleon whose eyeballs is on two axes and he sees the candle differently. He won't see a candle like we see the candle. And then you bring in the bat who actually only sees ultraviolet lights. He doesn't even see a candle the way we see it. And then so where's the candle? So there is no candle. It's again, in our wakeful life, it's an image that we have made of a candle. And so therefore Allah says that what we see in this world is nothing. The reality is with Allah. Now, to simplify it, which is not simple when we talk about consciousness and infinite consciousness, which is Allah, but to simplify it is to say that Allah is the scientist, and this is all a scientific project. This is one of Allah's projects. And so what happens when the project is finished? Only Allah is left, only the scientist will be there. So the goal is towards Allah. So nothing of this world that we make attachments to is real. Even ourselves and our ego that we think is so important is not real, because we're not our ego. We are only consciousness. So we are consciousness, we are a vibration within consciousness, and Allah is infinite consciousness. That's all we are. So the goal is Allah, and everything else is just matter. And it doesn't matter at the end of the day. So that the house that they've broken in and the possession that they have stolen was all just matter, and it doesn't matter. It's how we respond to that incident that matters. It's what we leave on the consciousness that we die with that matters. Because when you die, yes, your body dies, your mind dies, but we never die, because consciousness never dies. In fact, we were not even born. We just came into a different experience. And when we die, that's why Muslims should not be afraid of death, because you're just exiting an experience, but you never die. But there's a purpose to this experience, because whatever you experience in this influences your level of consciousness. And that is why we need to make sure that whatever we experience and whatever we take into our mind and into our consciousness, that we've made conscious decisions to do that. Barakallahu li wa lakum fil Qur'an al-Kareem. ونفعنا إياكم بالآيات وذكر الحكيم إنه جواد ملك بر رب رؤوف رحيم. So when we talk about responding versus reacting, it's all about checking our feelings and our feelings that we have to the attachments, to the things that we attach to. So it's about allowing ourselves a gap in between when something happens and when we respond. So often when we don't allow ourselves this gap, then we react. Alright? Somebody does something to you, they betray you, or they break into your house, and then you react. But if you allow yourself to think, why is this happening? What does it do to my consciousness? Then you allow yourself to respond. And responding is better than reacting. Allah says in the Quran, أَفَرَأَيْتَ مَنِ اتَّخَذَ إِلَهُ هَوَاهُ. Have you ever seen the one who has taken his own desires for his God? So this is ego stuff. When we think that we this, right? And we become, the I, and I can do this and I can do that. And then we almost as if we have taken ourselves as our own God. If Allah says, have you seen the one who has taken his own desires for as God? And as a result of that, Allah has caused him to stray. And as a result of that, Allah has covered his hearing. Allah has sealed his heart. And his vision has become blurred as by a veil. And then who after Allah can guide him? And then Allah says, will you then not reflect? So again, Allah is reminding us in this, that even your ego is nothing. What matters is Allah, because Allah can take it away and Allah can bring it back. So what is meant by this verse is that if we do not constantly work on rebuffing our ego, we will eventually succumb to it and we will follow its desires. But when we seek to understand our ego and to gain mastery over our ego, then we will then begin to live a life free of attachments. Because now we know the attachments is what leads us to unhappiness and what leads us to depression. Allahumma ansur man nasara dina Muhammad. Allahumma ansur al-mujahideen fi kulli makan. Allahumma yassir wa la tu'assir. Allahumma tammim bil khair wa anta al-karim muyassir. Oh Allah, assist those who assist the cause of Muhammad. Oh Allah, assist all those who strive towards good in every place. Oh Allah, make things easy for us and remove difficulty from us. And oh Allah, complete us in goodness, for truly you are the most noble of those who provides assistance.